What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Show, where I, Graham G.S. Matthews, break down all the original content you watch on the WWE Network and on Peacock. And today we're talking the September 6th, 2021 edition of Raw Talk. I just got back from Chicago late last night, caught up on Raw this morning, and honestly, it wasn't a terrible show. By Raw standards, it was better than usual. That's not saying much. The show's usually awful. I did not like last week's show. I thought this week's show was solid, if only for the tag team turmoil stuff in McIntyre versus Sheamus, which again is not saying much. The rest of the show was kind of ho-hum. It was all right, though. I thought the show was solid overall. Enjoyed it for the most part, if not by recent Raw standards. And I thought Raw Talk this week was decent as well. So let's get right into it. This week it was hosted by Kayla Braxton and Matt Camp. It feels like they've gone every other week with a new hosting duo. So like last week we had Scott Stanford and Matt Camp. The week before that was Kayla and Matt Camp. So it feels like every other week it's Kayla and Camp, and then it's Stanford and Camp. So maybe next week we'll get Scott Stanford. If not, maybe they're just testing the waters for who they like in the role better. I like Scott Stanford. I feel like Kayla Braxton brings more of a personality to the show. So hopefully she's kind of in this role permanently. But if they want to go every other week, switching it off for whatever reason, that's fine too. So they recap the ending to Raw this week that saw Bobby Lashley and MVP knock off, who was it, AJ Styles and Omos, to become new #1 contenders for the Raw Tag Team titles next week on Raw, in a rematch from Raw from last week. They also run down the biggest headlines from Raw, including Sheamus knocking off Drew McIntyre to become the next #1 contender for the United States Championship at Extreme Rules. Matt Camp brings up how Damian Priest has got to be feeling confident. Although this was a hard-hitting match, it was another great match from Drew and Sheamus one-on-one this week. Priest has already proven he can beat Sheamus before. He won the triple threat match last week, but even prior to that point, he beat Sheamus one-on-one to win that U.S. Championship in the first place back at SummerSlam. So Priest, we hear from him being interviewed by Kevin Patrick here on Raw Talk, calls that triple threat win from last week's Raw huge and how big it was for him to pin Drew McIntyre in that triple threat match. But despite Sheamus, posing somewhat of a threat to his United States Championship, he still vows to leave Extreme Rules as the United States Champion. He calls his fans the agents of infamy. That's the first time I've ever heard that. I guess that's what he calls his fans. I don't know if that's a WWE thing or if it's a Priest thing. It's interesting. It's not awful. I don't know if it's great, but it's interesting. But the reason he feels his fans connect with him and why he got such a great reaction tonight when he was shown backstage or any other night when he's outside or out in the ring or out in front of the fans or whatever, it's because people see through him, like in a good way, and know that he's genuine. Or they see through everyone else, I think he was trying to say, and that they kind of see everyone is playing a character on TV. And again, he doesn't use these exact words, but who Damian Priest is out in that ring on WWE TV is the same Damian Priest you'll see out in the street, or you'll see out in public or whatever, which is true. I've met Damian. Had a chance to meet him over SummerSlam weekend. He's a great dude. He's a really fucking cool guy. And all these other people are great people too, but the Damian Priest you see is the Damian Priest you get. And he very much is genuine, which is what I very much enjoy about his character. And I praise WWE and at least getting him right as far as the NXT call-ups are concerned, because they've got a lot of NXT call-ups wrong, Karrion Kross being one of them, in my opinion, who I'll go to momentarily. But Damian Priest is one guy they've called up and booked him as exactly as they should have from the get-go, which is very admirable, and it's cool to see. He wants to deliver for his fans and walk out Extreme Rules, like I said earlier, still the United States Champion. And then as the interview ends, Kevin Patrick brings up how the last time on Raw Talk, 2 weeks ago, it was Priest saying, oh yeah, we're going out for a drink, Drew and I, whatever, we're going out for a drink out in the town here in Vegas or California, wherever they were at that point. And Kevin asked if he could join. And Damian said, maybe next time. So Kevin brings that back here and says, well, Damian, you said maybe next time. What about that, Pine? Can I take you up on that offer? Like, next time is now. Damian says, I'll text you, Kevin. And then Damian walks off, and then Kevin, selling this like a champ, just looks in the direction where Damian Priest walked away. And he simply says, but you don't have my number. And it was a great line, and you feel bad for Kevin Patrick. They kind of make him look like a goof here on the show sometimes, but I'm a big Kevin Patrick fan. He's corny, he's funny, he's likable. I'm a big Kevin Patrick guy, so I thought that was well done. Matt Camp says that match at Extreme Rules, Sheamus and Priest, is going to be one heck of a showdown for that United States Championship. They also recap the Rhea, Ripley, Nikki, Ash tag team win over Natalya and Tamina in the championship contenders match, which was fucking dumb because, listen, I like Ripley and Nikki as a team is fine. It kind of seems very similar to RK Bro, and that it's done a lot better in my opinion. I enjoy them far more. Ripley and Nikki being put together really only feels like it's being done because WWE has nothing else for them to do right now. But I will say this, though. This is only stupid for one reason. In the sense that Natalya and Tamina already lost 3 fucking times to Tegan Nox and Shotzi on SmackDown. And they have yet to get a title shot. So it looks like they're teasing that Ripley and Nikki might be next in line. Even though Tegan and Shotzi have beaten the champions 3 times in the last month and a half. Or 2 months, rather. And they've just been a complete afterthought on SmackDown because they have yet to get a title shot. That makes absolutely no fucking sense. But Matt Camp says that the only real reason why Rhea Ripley is teaming up with Nikki, aside from having kind of mutual respect for her, is that she wants more gold. She can't go after the Raw Women's Championship right now. She's never held tag team gold before in WWE. Nikki has. But she wants more gold. A lot like Bobby Lashley. And Kayla says that if they can continue to build that chemistry and connect with crowds and pick up wins, they can be a serious threat to those tag team titles. And Matt Camp believes in their team. They recap the Moist TV segment, which was fucking dumb. And I like Morrison, I love Cross, I love both guys, actually. But the whole Moist TV thing is fucking stupid. And I think Morrison going back to being a babyface is fine. I'm honestly okay with that. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for him to really break out on his own, separate himself from The Miz. But the dripstick shit has got to go. It's stupid. It's not going to do him any favors as a heel, as a face, whatever. So they recap the match with Karrion Kross beating John Morrison on Raw. A match that never really had a chance to be what it could have been. It was very short-lived. Kross won rather quickly, so it was what it was. Matt Camp says that Karrion Kross is quickly establishing himself as a major threat on the Raw roster with wins now over Jeff Hardy, Keith Lee, Ricochet, Humberto Carrillo, and John Morrison this week. And he should be looking after championships, whether it be the United States title or the WWE title. He should be gunning for gold very, very soon. And Matt Camp says that Karrion Kross has come to Raw for only 2 reasons. 1, to hurt people, and 2, to dominate people. So we hear from Karrion Kross being quickly interviewed backstage at Raw by Kevin Patrick, and Kross says that people know who he is. People aren't, Morrison was kind of insinuating during their Moist TV interview, their sit-down interview together, that people didn't know who he was. Kross said, hey, people know who I am. They know what I'm capable of. Sometimes I forget who I am, he says. But he might find the answer that he's looking for by continuing to hurt people on the Raw roster. And it was a very quick interview, and I'm glad that Karrion has won a majority of his matches the last couple of weeks on Raw, but then why the fuck, as I've said a million times before, would you have him lose his debut in 2 minutes to Jeff Hardy? I mean, come on, man. This is a fucking joke. If they want to continue building him, I think that's great. The gear is dumb. I don't know where Scarlett is. I don't know what's going on with any of that. But I don't know why you would have him lose his debut. I'm glad he's winning. Again, it's not all bad with Kross. It's just I don't know why you would have him lose his debut in the fashion that they did. I mean, it really makes no sense in retrospect. It made no sense then, and it makes even less sense now. So we go back to the studio. Matt Camp praises New Day's Outsiders gear, which was fucking great. Xavier was Scott Hall. Kofi was Kevin Nash. I assumed that he was going to wear that gear at SummerSlam. I don't know what happened to Kofi and why he was gone for a month and a half or so. We hadn't seen him prior to... And actually, he was gone for like most of the SummerSlam build. He was shown backstage, wasn't at SummerSlam, wasn't on Raw the next night. He wasn't on Raw last week, but he was back this week. I don't know what happened to him. I'm glad he's okay. They praise Matt Camp and Kayla do the 5-match win streak they had on Raw this week. They beat 5 teams before finally falling in the tag team gauntlet match to AJ Styles and Omos. I think it was AJ. Yeah, it was AJ and Omos. They also preview next week's title match that will see RK Bro defend the Raw Tag Team titles against Bobby Lashley and MVP in a rematch from last week's Raw main event. And Matt Camp says that RK Bro are superstar performers, and he expects RK Bro to retain, but the fact that Orton now has a WWE Championship title opportunity in his back pocket at Extreme Rules, that could be the distraction that costs them the championship. So it could go either way next week. They also recap Charlotte Flair versus Nia Jax for the Raw Women's Championship from Monday's Raw, which was a slightly better match from last week, which was one of the worst matches I've seen all year. It fucking sucked. The rematch was better. Not saying much, but it was better and had the right result with Charlotte Flair retaining the Raw Women's Championship. And Matt Camp says that Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, because it was Shayna who kind of distracted Nia and cost her the win on Raw this week, they're back at the beginning. This is how the whole tag team started out over a year ago, and I'm glad they're referencing that. The tag team sucks. I think Shayna really should be back on her own. I'm not a Nia Jax fan at all, but I'm glad they're referencing the fact that their team kind of came out of the fact that they weren't friends. They didn't like each other. Their bad blood led to them teaming and becoming this, in storyline, a dominant team for a while, holding those tag team titles for the better part of the past year. I mean, they won the championships in August of 2020 before losing them in January, got them back quickly, or lost them in December, got them back in January, and lost them in May. So they held those titles for the better part of the past year, but now they're back to where they started because of a lack of success. They haven't been tag team champions since May. They've lost a lot of their matches. So hopefully that blows over and we can have Shayna going back on her own. They can get this shit over with and put Shayna back on her own because Nia Jax is terrible and they have no business being a team still by September of 2021. Kayla and Camp also recap the Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss confrontation from Raw, where it was basically implied that we are getting Charlotte and Alexa for the Raw Women's Championship at Extreme Rules. And Kayla says that, I mean, she lost a little bit of credibility in my book by saying this, but she said that she's very excited for that confrontation. Now listen, I like Alexa Bliss a lot. I think Charlotte Flair is great. I think both women in their respective roles are great. The Lily shit is fucking awful. It's fucking terrible. This incarnation of Alexa Bliss, with what they're doing with her being in the title picture, does not excite me at all. It makes me actually sub-excited. That's even a word. It makes me less than excited. It makes me not want to see the match. Because I feel like as an actual match, it could be decent, but when you get the supernatural bullshit in there, it's absolute fucking garbage. So we'll see how the match plays out at the pay-per-view. I have no faith. The matches that Bliss had with Baszler at Hell in a Cell and then at SummerSlam with Eva Marie were terrible. Hopefully they can have a better match at Night of Champions or Clash of Champions, whatever. No, Extreme Rules, I'm sorry. Extreme Rules between Bliss and Charlotte Flair. I lost my train of thought there for a second. Hopefully it can be better than those two outings, but I'm not holding my breath. Matt Cam says that Alexa Bliss will be playing a very different game from Charlotte come the pay-per-view. It's going to be a collision course, two very different styles. But we'll see what happens. Charlotte Flair, they interview her real quickly backstage. Sarah Schreiber does here on Raw Talk. And Charlotte Flair says, despite losing last week, she saw it as a win because she's a student of the game. She learned something from that loss last week, and she used it to her advantage this week to retain the Raw Women's Championship when it mattered most. And she says, I don't play with dolls. I collect championships. And it's my time right now. If Alexa Bliss wants this title, she's got to come to me. So they don't make the match official for the pay-per-view, but it's all but... maybe they'll do it next week on Raw, because they're going up against Monday Night Football next week, the return of Monday Night Football. And the ratings are in the toilet for Raw anyway, but they're not going to be helped by that whatsoever. So I assume they save it for the pay-per-view. They should save it for the pay-per-view. But like I said, if they continue on with the Lily bullshit, because they continue talking about it here, which is... it's just absolute garbage. They continue talking about Lily even after the Charlotte Flair interview was over. It's absolute trash. But anyway. So hopefully they can exceed expectations. I like Alexa Bliss a lot. I like Charlotte. But the supernatural bullshit has got to end. It's just garbage. But anyway, guys, that was Raw Talk for September 6, 2021. Thank you for checking out the show. I appreciate it. Be sure to like this video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. And by hitting the bell button right below this video, you'll be notified every time a new video goes up. Check out all my other Raw reviews in the description box down below. Check out my all-out live reaction reviews, or not reviews, videos rather, from AEW All Out 2021 from on Sunday. I was there in attendance with Alexis. We had an amazing time. Got a lot of great footage from being there in person. Check out those videos right here on the channel and subscribe for more, as I said earlier, daily content. Have an awesome one, guys. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'm Graham G. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.